exist in a state of perpetual performance, an endless audition where the role you're trying to land is acceptable human being. From the moment your infant cries were first shushed into socially appropriate volumes, you've been learning the intricate choreography of approved existence. The way you modulate your voice in professional settings, the careful calibration of your opinions based on your audience, the subtle editing of your authentic reactions into palatable responses. These aren't just social niceties. They're the bricks in an invisible prison you've been constructing around your true self since before you could articulate what was happening to you. Consider the sheer volume of mental real estate devoted to managing perceptions, the preemptive editing of statements before they leave your mouth, the constant scanning of environments for behavioral cues, the post-interaction autopsies where you replay conversations to assess how successfully you performed acceptability. This isn't mere social adaptation. It's a full-time occupation that leaves no room for your unfiltered self to breathe. The energy you expend maintaining this facade could power small cities, yet you wonder why you're perpetually exhausted despite adequate sleep and nutrition. These lessons weren't delivered in formal curriculum, but seeped into your consciousness through countless micro-interactions. The art project praised for its neatness rather than its creativity, the spontaneous outbursts that earned frowns rather than engagement, the unconventional questions that were dismissed rather than explored. Over time, you internalized these responses as natural law rather than cultural conditioning. What began as external expectations became your internal compass, until you could no longer distinguish between who you truly were and who you'd learned to become. The prison became so familiar that its walls felt like part of your anatomy, its restrictions mistaken for personal limitations rather than learned constraints. Your physical form has become a living testament to this lifelong performance. The tension in your jaw speaks of all the words you've bitten back. The hunch in your shoulders carries the weight of expectations you've been bending beneath. Your shallow breathing patterns mirror the constrained life you've accepted as normal. Modern medicine would label these as stress symptoms to be medicated, but they're actually your body's rebellion against the inauthenticity you force it to perform. Consider the way your stomach knots when you agree to something against your better judgment, the headaches that emerge after days of excessive people-pleasing, the inexplicable fatigue that follows social interactions where you've performed rather than participated. These aren't random malfunctions but somatic protests, your corporeal self sounding the alarm about the psychological violence you inflict upon it daily. Your body remembers what your mind has worked so hard to forget, that you were meant for more than this constrained existence. Let's examine the ledger of your performed life. On the credit side, social approval, temporary, professional advancement, often meaningless, surface-level relationships, easily disrupted. On the debit side, the slow erosion of self-trust, the cumulative exhaustion of constant self-monitoring, the existential despair of feeling like an imposter in your own life. The math never works out in your favor. You're trading gold for glitter, sacrificing your most authentic self for the thinnest veneer of social comfort. The interest compounds daily, each act of self-betrayal making the next one easier, until authenticity becomes a foreign language you can barely recall speaking. You've been sold control as the ultimate virtue, the solution to all life's uncertainties. Entire industries thrive on this deception, offering productivity systems to optimize every waking minute, life hacks to circumvent natural human processes, 5-year plans that pretend the universe cares about your spreadsheet. In reality, this obsession with control is just spiritual bypassing dressed in business casual. By focusing on managing externals, you avoid the terrifying work of examining your interior landscape. The more elaborate your systems become, the further you drift from any authentic experience of being alive. Consider the absurdity. You track your sleep while ignoring your soul's exhaustion. You count macros while starving your spirit. You optimize workflows while your inner life lies in ruins. This isn't sophistication. It's spiritual bankruptcy disguised as self-improvement. The tighter you grip the reins, the less you actually experience the ride. Somewhere along the way, you internalized a whole administrative system for managing your own humanity. the committee that reviews every impulse before approval, the accounting department that tallies social debts and credits, the public relations team that spins your raw experience into acceptable narratives. This internal bureaucracy was meant to protect you, but it's mostly succeeded in cutting you off from your direct experience of life. Spontaneity gets bogged down in red tape. Intuition gets overruled by protocol. Joy gets postponed until all the paperwork is in order. The result? You've become a spectator in your own life, watching experiences through the thick glass of your own defenses, wondering why everything feels muted and distant. The administrative state you've created to keep yourself safe has become your primary obstacle to actually living. If we could chart the landscape of your inner world, we'd find vast territories of unexplored potential, fertile regions of creativity left fallow, whole mountain ranges of emotion you've been trained to avoid. Meanwhile, you spend most of your time in a small, well-tended courtyard of approved thoughts and behaviors, believing this cramped space represents your entire being. The dissonance between what's possible and what you permit creates a constant, low-grade suffering you've learned to accept as normal. The path back to yourself isn't one of addition, but subtraction, not acquiring new skills or insights, but dismantling the barriers that keep you from what you already contain. Each time you honor a genuine impulse over social expectation, choose self-expression over self-censorship, prioritize authenticity over approval, you reclaim another piece of your inner geography. Over time, these small acts of reclamation add up to a homecoming of monumental proportions. Escaping your conditioned patterns requires tremendous energy, not because freedom is inherently difficult, but because you're fighting against years of neural pathways that reinforce inauthenticity, social structures that reward compliance, internalized beliefs that equate safety with smallness. The initial energy investment feels overwhelming because you're essentially rewiring your entire being. But consider the energy you're already expending, the mental load of constant self-monitoring, the emotional labor of performing acceptable emotions, the spiritual toll of living out of alignment. When viewed this way, authenticity isn't an additional burden, but a redistribution of energy from maintaining facades to nurturing your true self. The breakthrough comes when you realize you're already doing the hard work, just for the wrong team. Your prison isn't just personal. It's part of an interlocking system that includes cultural narratives about success and worth, economic structures that profit from your insecurity, historical traumas passed down through generations. Understanding this helps you see your conditioning as something that happened to you rather than something you chose. But here's the crucial insight. While you didn't build the system, you're the only one who can liberate yourself from it. This work isn't selfish, it's ecological. As you free yourself from these patterns, you create space for others to do the same, interrupt generational cycles of inauthenticity, contribute to changing the larger systems that enforce these constraints. Your liberation isn't just about you. It's about participating in the creation of a world where more people can breathe freely, love openly, and exist authentically. Beneath the layers of conditioning, your essential self still exists, not as some idealized version waiting to be uncovered, but as a living presence that's been with you all along. Reconnecting requires gentle excavation of long-buried impulses, careful examination of inherited beliefs, patient sitting with the discomfort of not knowing who you are beneath the roles. This isn't nostalgia for some lost childhood purity, but recognition that your core self has been with you all along, quietly persistent beneath the performances. The moments when you felt most alive, those flashes of unexpected joy, those rare instances of unself-conscious being, those weren't anomalies but reminders of what's always been true beneath what you've been taught. What if, instead of navigating by social approval, external validation, conventional markers of success, you learn to orient by internal resonance, somatic wisdom, authentic desire? This shift in orientation changes everything. Decisions that once required endless pros and cons lists become clearer when you ask, does this choice make me feel more or less like myself? Relationships sort themselves naturally when you prioritize connection over performance. Your entire life reorganizes around a new gravitational center, not outside approval, but inner truth. Our culture operates on an infinite growth model that can never satisfy. Authentic living requires learning a new arithmetic where presence outweighs productivity. Connection matters more than consumption. Being supersedes doing. This isn't anti-ambition, but a redefinition of what's worth pursuing. When you stop measuring yourself by external metrics, you discover the profound satisfaction of moments fully experienced, relationships deeply lived, work truly aligned with your values. These don't translate neatly into resume bullet points or social media posts, but they create a life rich in ways that actually matter to the human soul. Your path forward isn't about rejecting all you've been, but transforming it. People-pleasing becomes compassionate boundaries. Perfectionism becomes passionate engagement. Control becomes curious participation. Nothing is wasted when you approach your conditioning as raw material rather than enemy. The very sensitivity that made you vulnerable to others' expectations becomes your greatest asset in crafting an authentic life. The attention to detail that once served others' agendas now serves your deepest values. No one can give you directions to your authentic life because the territory is unique to you. The landmarks keep changing. The destination emerges as you walk. This is why prefabricated self-help solutions always disappoint. They offer generic maps to personal terrain. Your work is to become cartographer of your own experience, learning to read your inner compass, trust your intuitive wayfinding, value detours as much as direct routes. The anxiety of not having a map gives way to the adventure of creating one as you go. Conditioned living operates on schedules, deadlines, productivity metrics. Authentic living moves to rhythms of natural cycles, creative pulses, somatic wisdom. When you stop forcing yourself into artificial time frames, you discover ideas have their own gestation periods. Healing follows spiral rather than linear paths. Growth can't be rushed but can't be stopped either. This temporal reorientation may be the most radical act of all in our hurried age. After years of drowning out your inner voice with others' opinions, cultural noise, constant distraction, reconnecting requires creating silence, practicing deep listening, honoring what you hear. At first, the signals may be faint, a slight tension when you're out of alignment, a subtle expansion when you're on track. But as you practice attending to these cues, your inner guidance system grows stronger and clearer until you're no longer conducting your life by others' scores, but improvising your own unique melody. Imagine your existence as an ongoing art project where every choice is a brushstroke, each relationship is a color, your environment is the canvas. The only question that matters is this what I want to create? Not is this good by external standards, but does this feel true to your deepest knowing? This perspective transforms liberation from an abstract concept into a daily creative practice. Each moment becomes an opportunity to choose authenticity over conditioning, until your entire life becomes a masterpiece of courageous self-expression. The prison door was never locked. The gallery walls were always imaginary. The exhibition of your authentic life is waiting to begin. The only question is when you'll say yes to being both artist and artwork, creator and creation, the liberated and the liberation itself.